Cheers, everyone. Dave Brown here with the New Populist. If you are new to the channel, please like and subscribe. Well, I want to discuss something that was said by Chuck Schumer. And Chuck Schumer, of course, is the senior Democrat senator from New York and probably the most despicable man in the U.S. Senate. But he said that because of declining birth rates, we need more immigration. And of course, our immigration has been out of control for 50 years, which makes you go, how is more immigration the thing that we need when it's already so exorbitant, the amount of people crossing the U.S. border every day? And he points to birth rates. And birth rates have dropped in the United States for the last decade or so, specifically 2010. And birth rates do fluctuate based on economic conditions and war and things like that. But he is right, birth rates have dropped. But the question is, why are birth rates dropping? And do we really need immigration to account for this? Well, if you study economics, the one thing that correlates, or the two things that correlate with dropping birth rates is urbanization and economic development. When you have cities, when you have people making money, and when you have an expanding middle class, people have less children. And this is ubiquitous across the world. Anywhere you have money and urbanization, you have lower birth rates. You look at China and India, and they, of course, have a very large rural population, which is what actually fuels their population growth. And China fights it with their one-child policy, and India has their family planning. But, of course, I know India is not quite as authoritarian as China is, and the success of that program, of course, is very mixed. They're still growing rapidly, the population there in India. So what is the long-term solution for India and China if you're not going to be authoritarian about it and forcibly prevent people from having kids? Well, the answer to that is urbanization and economic development. That will naturally stop people from having more kids as they live in, you said, urban environments, and they have more money. They want to do more things. Women have careers. They don't want to have 10 kids because they're not, living on a farm somewhere. They have metropolitan lifestyles. But so while India and China have this problem with population, we have the opposite problem in the United States, according to Chuck Schumer. And we've seen this too in Western Europe, the immigration from Africa, from Turkey, into Germany and Sweden and other places, because they say the same thing, that they have low birth rates and they need more people. So is this true? And what is our long-term solution if we don't want to have more immigration? Well, the problem is that our economic system, our welfare system, is kind of a pyramid scheme. It's a Ponzi scheme. We have people who are retiring, their retirements are paid for by people working. Now, people are living longer, and so the amount of people on the getting their Social Security keeps on growing. In order to pay for that, you need a ever-expanding group of people working, which means more young people. And if they're not being born within the United States or whichever country has this issue, then people want to ship people in to make up for that. Now, what I would propose is this. Why do we have an economic system where an ever-increasing population rate, growth rate, is necessary to keep the system moving? And so this is the system itself is flawed because it was constructed in this way. And the long-term solution is we have to have a system that doesn't require this constant population growth, which is funny too, because one thing the left talks about and complains about is overpopulation and the need for stability in the world population number. So you have this contradiction. They're saying we're overpopulated, but then here Chuck Schumer is going, we need more immigration. We need more people within the United States. Now, which one is it? Of course, Chuck Schumer also knows that immigrants, when they come to the United States, when they get American citizenship, they vote Democrat 70% of the time. So, of course, there's an ulterior motive here. Chuck Schumer will say anything, anytime, if he thinks it's good for his party and good for his power. So we know he's full of BS. But again, I want to look at the issue of immigration and population growth and why we have this situation in the first place and what credible things he's saying as far as, growth rates. And that is credible. We do have a drop in growth rates. But there is actually one country that defies all this, goes against what I just said about urbanization and economic development. Israel. Israel, despite being a developed country and having a lot of women professionals, they actually still have a fairly high birth rate. I think it's 3 children per woman in Israel versus 1.64 in the United States. And why is this? Well, they have a very unique situation as far as their country and culture. It's a Jewish state, and they're encouraged, and through religion, this is very, especially in the Orthodox communities, to have a lot of kids to maintain the Jewish state and to keep on building. Whereas in the Western, other Western countries, Europe and the United States, it's the opposite, where even in the United States, Jews here have the same problem with birth rate. So there's a cultural and ethnic and national, sort of drive in Israel to have more kids, but outside of Israel, other places, any Western country has this problem with declining birth rates. So again, we do have declining birth rates, but the issue is our economic system and how it's constructed, where it's fundamentally flawed in that it requires this ever-expanding population in order to support itself. And even then, our debt, it keeps climbing. So despite our population growing and having more people pay into Social Security, we still can't keep up. And we're still always behind the 8 ball. And so long term, there has to be a change in our economic system, or at some point it will collapse. And I think right now we're $30 trillion in debt. Big problem. So until we fundamentally change our economic system, this issue of birth rates and immigration will always be a problem. And of course, the people on the left will use immigration for their reasons. And we on the right will fight immigration. Well, some of us will. But to very little success, unfortunately, because of the certain powers on the right who also want immigration for their own reasons as well. But long term, change the system and find a way to encourage people to have more kids. That I think is I'm not sure which one's harder. Encouraging more kids, and within the United States, encourage women to have more kids, or change the economic system. I think they're both equally extremely difficult, but that's the challenge we're going to have. If we don't solve it at some point, it will be a huge problem for us. So we'll just have to wait and see how this all unfolds. And I think I have a good idea how this unfolds. Unfortunately, it's not a good picture for us because I don't see either one of those things happening anytime soon. But again, that's the issue, and that's what has to be addressed if we want to solve the problem. Well, that's it for now. Again, if you are new to the channel, please like and subscribe. I'll see you next time.